I'm reading from my book It's Not a Boy, and we're on the chapter called The Lord Mayor. And we were doing the play Dick Whittington at school in the village hall. And our Lord Mayor was the rich Edmund. And he'd done everything right so far, and we were right near the end, and we were waiting for the curtains to be pulled and the clapping to start. But just at the last line, Edmund, well, you'll see. It didn't happen how it should, because guess what? We got right to Edmund's last line, and we were all waiting. But he didn't say anything. Everything was deadly quiet. I was sitting at his feet, purring like a cat should, and I looked up to his face, and it was then I realised something awful. Edmund, the great Lord Mayor of London, had forgotten his lines. He went red. He looked out in the wings, but nobody was there, except the two dads waiting to ring the bells, and then they were going to pull the curtains shut. Miss McBride had moved off to the front of the audience with Mr. Bantam. I stopped purring. Mrs. Wright began to frown, and her smile disappeared. We waited. Come on, Edmund, you can do it, I thought. But Edmund couldn't do it. His face went from red to white, and I held my breath. Of course, I knew the words that came next, and I could have told Edmund his lines, but I would show him up in front of everybody, and his mother would be angry with me and would want me punished. Also, the kids in our class wouldn't be pleased with me for helping Edmund because they were so cross with him getting the best part. And I might be like Fatty, who nobody wanted. But if I didn't do something, our whole play would be spoiled. This is what I did. I breathed out at last, and then took another deep breath and jumped up and put my paws on Edmund's shoulder. And I pretended to cat lick his ears. And that's when everybody laughed, a gentle laugh, a nice laugh. Then while they were laughing, I secretly whispered the next line. The prophecy of the bells is fulfilled. Edmund nodded ever so slightly, and then he smiled at the audience and he shouted the last line. The prophecy of the bells is fulfilled. I am the Lord Mayor of London. And then our backstairs dads rang the bells again, and everybody clapped and clapped, and we bowed and curtsied, and then went off stage, and the curtains were drawn. I was pleased to see that my mam had got there in time to watch our play, and we went home together on the bus. She didn't say that I was good as Dick's cat. I bet she was disappointed that I didn't have a better part so that she could be more proud of me. And I didn't tell her what I'd done to help Edmund, because she might have thought that I was jealous of him. So I kept quiet. Next day at school, it was all back to normal. Fatty was trying to join our games again and be part of our lads' gang, but of course he still couldn't run and nobody wanted him. Edmund was reading a book and nobody was taking any notice of him. But I did think that Edmund would take notice of me, and that he would be very pleased with me and come to thank me for telling him the last line. But he didn't. So to cheer myself up, I decided to put learning lines from a play on my What I'm Good At list. I was pleased to have something on there at last. And the next day I was even more pleased, because Edmund came running up to me at dinner time without saying a word. He pushed a little letter in my hand. It was an invitation to his very own Christmas party. Mum was very pleased and started her preparations straight away. She seemed more pleased than when I'd got that invitation for Helen, because she went off to get some material at the remnant shop to make me a lovely dress. It was going to be taffeta and net in pink. And then she rattled away on the sewing machine, and it was beautiful, that dress. She embroidered it with a lot of flowers, and she stitched sequins on it by hand. My hair was put in ringlet rags overnight, so that little springs hung down in the morning all over my head. I even got washed in our bathroom this time, and not our steamy wash house. I was allowed some of Mam's proper lipstick as well. She put a bit on her fingers and smudged it on my lips. When I was ready, Dad took me to Ringham in the car. When we got there to the big hotel, Dad shoved me inside through the front door and then rushed off as fast as he could because he was in a hurry to get back to his animals. But in any case, Dad didn't like parties. I edged in and stirred round in surprise. There, in that big room, were loads of kids and I didn't know any of them. There was nobody from our class except Edmund, of course. He was crowded round by people giving him presents, and I was suddenly so scared I couldn't move forwards. I just stood there as if I was frozen to the floor. Then Edmund came towards me smiling. "Come on, you can do it," he said kindly, and I handed him a present, which I wouldn't have minded myself. Mum had got it from the post office at Ripsey when she bought my material, and it was a 5-shilling postal order for me to give. Edmund seemed to like it, and he leant towards me and put his hand on my shoulder and his mouth to my ear, and he whispered, thank you very much indeed." And I knew that he wasn't just thanking me for the postal order. And then do you know what he did? He kissed me on my ever so slightly lipsticked lips, and I felt on top of the world, just like when I'd won that painting competition. We played Postman's Knock, and I got another kiss from Edmund. In Blind Man's Buff, Edmund guessed me, and then in Pass the Parcel, even though Edmund won, he let me unwrap a layer of paper. His mother smiled at me then, and I thought perhaps she was not so bad after all. I never left Edmund's side all night, and I wanted it to last forever. But after what seemed like a very short time, I saw my mam come through the big door to take me home. I could hardly wait for the next day at school when I would see my new friend Edmund again. When I spotted him riding to school on a new posh bike, I ran up to him. But to my surprise, he didn't say anything. And at playtime I stood near him. Might he kiss me again? But Edmund didn't even speak to me or smile. In fact, he didn't look up from his book even once. I got a new bike on Christmas Day. Well, it wasn't new, not like Edmund's. It was my old one, painted up by Dad, with its brakes tightened and then a new bell fastened on. But anyway, it looked quite good. And another thing I got was a new game of snakes and ladders. Brenda came and we played it all day. And sometimes she went up ladders and sometimes I did. And sometimes she came down snakes and sometimes I did as well. It didn't worry me too much when I came down a snake though, because it was only a game. In real life, I'd got something more on my what I am good at list, and I had been to Edmund's posh party, and the Lord Mayor had kissed me. Things were looking up for me again at last.